Have you ever caught yourself sabotaging something you really wanted? That promotion you let slip away, the relationship you destroyed for no reason, or that project you abandoned when you were so close to making it work? I spent years of my life wondering why this happened to me, until I discovered that there is a part of us that literally works against our conscious goals, and this part has a name. It's called the shadow. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what shadow work is, why everyone seeking personal growth should be doing this, and most importantly, how you can start today from scratch, even if you've never heard of this before. I'm a specialist in applied Jungian psychology, and over the past 5 years I've helped over 1,000 people transform their lives through this work, so stick with me until the end because I'm going to share 3 practical exercises you can do right now without needing a therapist, without needing to spend money, and that will start changing your life today. Before we dive into shadow work itself, I need to tell you a story that completely changed my perspective about myself. A few years ago, I was in an important work meeting and a colleague made a comment that deeply irritated me. It wasn't anything major, it was just an observation about my leadership style, but I felt a disproportionate anger rising inside me. At that moment, I could have reacted aggressively, I could have defended myself, but something made me stop and think, why did that bother me so much? It was as if he had touched a wound I didn't even know existed. I spent days ruminating on that situation until I realized something scary. He wasn't wrong, I really had that characteristic he mentioned, but it was something I completely rejected in myself, something I never admitted having. What irritated me about him was exactly what I was hiding from myself, and that was my first conscious experience with my shadow. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who developed this concept, said something very powerful: everything you cannot accept in yourself settles in your shadow. So let's understand what this really means. The shadow isn't something mystical or esoteric as many people think. It's simply the part of us that we reject, hide, or deny. Think with me: when you were a child, you were authentic, you cried when you were sad, screamed when you were angry, danced when you were happy. But then your parents, teachers, society started teaching you that certain emotions were unacceptable, that you shouldn't be too loud, too emotional, too ambitious, too selfish, too sensitive. And what did you do with these parts? You didn't eliminate them, that's impossible. You pushed them under the rug of your consciousness, created a persona, a socially acceptable mask, and everything that didn't fit in this mask ended up in the shadow. Now here's the problem, and pay close attention to this because it's crucial. These rejected parts don't disappear, they remain alive in your unconscious, influencing every decision you make, every relationship you have, every goal you pursue. Let me give you concrete examples of how the shadow operates in your life without you noticing. If you were raised believing that anger is bad, you probably developed an angry shadow that manifests in indirect ways, perhaps through sarcasm, procrastination, or passive aggressiveness. If you learned that ambition is selfish and negative, you probably sabotage your own achievements because subconsciously you believe you don't deserve success. If you were taught that vulnerability is weakness, you probably push away people who try to get emotionally close to you. See the pattern? Your shadow is always working behind the scenes, ensuring you don't become what you learn to reject, even if consciously you really want these things. And here's the really fascinating part that very few people understand: the shadow doesn't only contain negative traits, it also holds positive qualities you've repressed. If you grew up in an environment where standing out was dangerous, you may have repressed your confidence, your brilliance, your leadership potential. If you learned that being happy when others suffer is wrong, you may have repressed your own joy and ability to celebrate victories. Now, before continuing, I need to make an important warning because I see many people doing shadow work incorrectly and hurting themselves in the process. Shadow work isn't about judging yourself, it's not about punishing yourself for your flaws, it's not about digging up trauma after trauma until you feel terrible about yourself. The goal of shadow work is integration, not destruction. It's about bringing awareness to these hidden parts, understanding them, accepting them, and integrating them in a healthy way into your total personality. When you do this correctly, something magical happens. You become more whole, more authentic, more free. You stop wasting energy repressing parts of yourself and start using all your energy to create the life you really want. So how do you start doing shadow work in practice? I'm going to teach you now the method I use and teach, divided into 3 fundamental exercises that anyone can do. The first exercise is called emotional triggers mapping. Get paper and pen now, seriously, because this needs to be written. I want you to answer these questions with total honesty. Nobody will read this but you, so be brutally honest. Question number 1. Which characteristics in other people irritate you deeply in a disproportionate way? I'm not talking about normal irritations, I'm talking about those things that completely take you out of your mind, that make you lose reason. Write at least 5 characteristics. It could be arrogance, laziness, falsehood, excessive emotionality, coldness, manipulation, victimhood, anything that really bothers you. Question number 2. What do people criticize you for or have criticized you for that immediately puts you on the defensive? Those criticisms you vehemently reject, that you feel the need to defend yourself against, to prove they're not true. Write everything down. Question number 3. Which emotions or behaviors are you most proud of not having? For example, I'm never envious, I'm never cowardly, I'm never selfish. These nevers are always lies, they're perfect signposts of the shadow. Now comes the difficult part, but also the most transformative. For each item you wrote, I want you to ask yourself, could I have a little bit of this in me? It doesn't need to be at the same intensity you see in others, it could just be a seed. And here's the secret, whenever something irritates us disproportionately in others, it's because we unconsciously recognize that characteristic in ourselves and are fighting to repress it. Jung called this projection. For example, if you get extremely irritated by arrogant people, ask yourself, where is my own arrogance? Maybe you're not arrogant in the same way as these people, but maybe you have intellectual arrogance or moral arrogance or arrogance about your own humility. See the irony? This exercise isn't to make you feel bad, it's to make you conscious. When you recognize these parts in you, they stop controlling you unconsciously. The second exercise is dialogue with the shadow, and this one is powerful in a way you can't even imagine. It works like this. Choose a characteristic of your shadow that you identified in the previous exercise. Let's use an example. Let's say you discovered you have repressed envy. Now, instead of fighting against this part, you're going to have a conversation with it. Yes, literally write a dialogue. Start by asking, "Dear envy, why are you here? What are you trying to show me?" And then let the answer come. Don't force it, don't censor, just write what comes to mind. You'll be surprised by the answers. Often envy, for example, is showing you legitimate desires you've repressed. It's showing you that you want more from life but are afraid to admit it because you were taught that ambition is bad. Continue the dialogue, ask, what do you need from me? How can I honor you in a healthy way? And keep writing the answers. What you're doing here is creating a communication channel with parts of you that were being forcibly silenced. When you stop fighting against these parts and start listening to them, they stop sabotaging you. They have important messages, legitimate needs that are being ignored. The third exercise is integration through action, and this is where the magic really happens because all the knowledge in the world is worthless without action. After identifying aspects of your shadow and dialoguing with them, you need to find healthy ways to express these parts. If you discovered you repressed your anger, it doesn't mean you should go out screaming at everyone, it means you need to learn to establish healthy boundaries, say no when necessary, express discontent assertively. If you discovered you repressed your ambition because you were afraid of seeming selfish, it doesn't mean you should become a corporate sociopath, it means you can start pursuing your goals without guilt, you can want things for yourself without apologizing for it. If you repressed your vulnerability, start small, share something personal with someone you trust, ask for help when you need it, admit when you don't know something. Integration happens through small courageous actions where you allow these repressed parts to exist consciously and healthily. Now, I know some people will be watching this and thinking, but this seems very difficult, very heavy, I don't know if I can do it alone. And you're partly right, shadow work can be intense, especially if you're dealing with deep traumas or very complex issues. In these cases, working with a specialized therapist is absolutely recommended and there's no shame in that. But I also want you to know that starting alone is totally possible and even necessary because shadow work is a continuous process. It's not something you do once and you're done. It's a life practice. It's a commitment to constant self-awareness and growth. And every small step you take in this direction already makes an immediate difference in your life. Let me tell you what happened to me when I started doing this work seriously. Remember that story I told at the beginning about the work meeting? After that incident, I started investigating my shadow seriously. I discovered I had completely repressed my controlling side because my father was extremely controlling and I swore never to be like him. The problem is that this controlling side didn't disappear, it was manifesting in subtle and destructive ways, through paralyzing perfectionism, micromanagement disguised as mentoring, and a neurotic need to always be right. When I finally recognized and accepted that yes, I have controlling tendencies, and that this doesn't make me my father nor does it make me a horrible person, something liberating happened. I stopped spending energy fighting this part of me and started channeling it productively. That need for control, when consciously integrated, transformed into excellent planning, organization, and project management capacity. The difference is that now I choose when and how to exercise control, instead of being unconsciously controlled by this need. And here's another crucial thing I need to tell you. Shadow work isn't just about negative aspects you've repressed, it's also about positive qualities you've hidden. This is what Jung called the golden shadow, and it's just as important as the dark shadow. Many people, especially those raised in environments where standing out was dangerous, repressed their greatness, their brilliance, their leadership capacity. If you feel uncomfortable when you receive compliments, if you minimize your achievements, if you feel guilty for being successful while others aren't, you probably have a golden shadow. The exercise here is the same: identify the positive qualities you reject in yourself, dialogue with them, discover why you repressed them, and then practice small acts of permission for them to exist. Allow yourself to shine, allow yourself to be seen, allow yourself to have success without guilt. One thing nobody tells you about shadow work is that it's cyclical, not linear. You won't do these exercises once and discover your entire shadow at once. The shadow reveals itself in layers as you're ready to deal with each layer. And that's okay, actually it's perfect that way. Shadow work is a lifelong journey, not a destination to be reached. Every time you catch yourself having a disproportionate emotional reaction, every time you surprise yourself with your own behavior that doesn't make sense, every time you feel yourself sabotaging something important, these are all opportunities to do shadow work. They're invitations from your shadow to pay attention, to look deeper. I want to share one more story before closing, because I think it will resonate with many people watching. I had a client who came to me completely frustrated because she sabotaged all the romantic relationships she started. Whenever someone got too close emotionally, she found flaws in that person and ended the relationship. When we started investigating her shadow, we discovered something surprising. She had a deeply buried belief that love meant loss of identity, because her mother had literally disappeared in her marriage, had stopped existing as an individual to become just a wife and mother. My client swore never to let that happen to her, and her shadow was protecting her by sabotaging relationships before she could lose herself in them. But here's the problem: she really wanted a deep relationship, so she was in constant war with herself. When we did the work of recognizing and dialoguing with this protective part, when she could honor the legitimate fear without letting it control her, when she integrated the need for autonomy consciously, she finally managed to have a healthy relationship where she could be intimate and autonomous at the same time. Today she's married and continues being absolutely herself, because she did the necessary internal work. So let's recap the 3 essential steps you can start today. First, emotional triggers mapping. Identify what irritates you in others, what makes you defensive, and what you're proud of not being, because all of this are clues to your shadow. Second, dialogue with the shadow. Choose an identified aspect and have a written conversation with that part of you. Ask what it needs, what it's trying to show you, how you can honor it healthily. Third, integration through action. Find small and safe ways to express these repressed parts consciously, allowing them to exist without dominating you. These 3 steps, when practiced consistently, will transform your life in ways you can't even imagine now. And look, I know all of this can seem like a lot. It can seem scary to dive into the depths of yourself and confront things you've spent your whole life avoiding. But I also want you to know that on the other side of that fear exists a freedom you've never experienced. There exists a version of you that isn't constantly fighting against yourself, that isn't wasting energy repressing parts of who you are, that isn't being unconsciously controlled by fears and beliefs she doesn't even realize she has. That version of you is more powerful, more authentic, more capable of creating the life she really wants. And the only path to her is through the shadow. There's no shortcut, there's no way to skip this part. Shadow work is the most courageous work you can do because it requires you to look at the parts of yourself you've spent your whole life trying to hide, even from yourself. But it's also the most liberating, most transformative, most essential work for anyone who really wants to grow, evolve, and live an authentic and fulfilling life. Carl Jung said something very profound: "I'd rather be whole than good." What he meant is that it's better to accept and integrate all the parts of who you are, even the imperfect ones, than to live a life pretending to be something you're not, repressing essential parts of your humanity in the name of being socially acceptable. So my invitation to you is to start today, right now, not tomorrow, not next week, now. Get paper and pen and do the first exercise I taught you. Spend 15 minutes being brutally honest with yourself about what irritates you, what makes you defensive, what you reject. This small step is already the beginning of your integration journey. And if you want to go deeper, if you really want to transform your life through this work, leave a comment below saying what was the biggest discovery you had about your shadow today. I read all comments and respond personally. And if you know someone who is stuck in self-sabotage patterns, who is fighting against themselves without realizing it, share this video with that person because maybe it's exactly what they need to hear today. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell because every week I bring deep content about applied Jungian psychology, real personal development, not those empty motivational phrases, but practical tools that really transform lives. Thank you for watching until here. Your presence and your commitment to your own growth already show you're ready for this work. See you in the next video, and remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and you've just taken that step.
If this resonated with you, subscribe to the Shadow Dialogue and hit that like button. Your transformation starts with one click. See you in the next video.